I've always loved property. I've always invested in property. I bought my first property the year before I got married at the age of 20. Got married at 21. So I bought my first property, and that gave me a bit of a footing into property.
Wow.
And alongside that, I worked for the bank, obviously. So I knew terminology. I knew how the mortgages work. I knew what a bank account was and how to manage money. So I bought that, and then I had that entrepreneurial spirit on the side where I wanted to do like a little side gig. I wanted to do like a little social experiment. So I opened a car wash.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Next Level Finance Podcast, episode 10. Can you believe it? And today we've got a special guest called Akhil Mair. Akhil, thank you. And get ready for the value. And this is going to be a amazing one when you see all the insight that we're going to provide you. So if you want to know about finance, this is the man. And as I said in the intro, we've got Akhil Mair here today, and we're going to be talking about finances on the Next Level Finance podcast. A lot of entrepreneurs and people getting their primary resident mortgages and things like this. You want to be watching this because this affects everybody. Right, Akhil, thank you for coming down.
My pleasure.
And are you ready for all the fun? I know.
Let's get to it. Let's see how it put me to the test.
And you had that serious look, so you're ready for business, and this is what I was looking forward to. And what we're going to do, as we normally do, Akhil, is just talk through all the different things about your perspective on business, your journey, and help other entrepreneurs, because this is so important. And people get inspired by different people's journey, and hopefully the audience, this is going to go all across social media, as you know, they love the different aspects. So I know they're going to get a lot of value, so I'm quite excited by this.
Fingers crossed.
Nah, and more than fingers crossed, I know it's going to happen. Right, let's get into it, right, Akhil? First of all, as we start, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Because people always want to have a little bit of a picture, and then we'll get onto a few things. So just give us a bit of an outline of who is Akhil Mair.
Well, thank you, Z, for having me on your Next Level Finance podcast. Obviously, I'm here to provide a bit more insight on my personal life, as well as our business at our mortgage broker. Personally, I'm 40 years old. I've been married for quite some time, and I've fortunate to have 2 young children as well. So that's me on a personal basis. As well, on the business side, I run my own brokerage. So I head up the business, and we've got 10 advisors within the business.
Wow, you can see Akhil, and he's going to tell us about his journey, how it's affected him, but you get the outline of what he's up to and what he's been doing. I love that context. Thank you, Akhil. Right, let's get on to personal challenges, right? Sure. I always love this part because our viewers want to know a bit about Akhil Mair and his views on the business world and personal world and how that all came about. So first of all, I wanted to touch, how did you get an entrepreneurial mindset? Can you sort of give a bit of an insight on that?
Yeah, I think my entrepreneurial mindset actually came from family.
Right.
Family first. And the reason why I say that is my family, both my mother's side and my father's side, have both been entrepreneurial, both been in business from whenever I can remember.
Wow.
So my mother's family are from the jewellery background, so fashionable jewellery. And my father's side are from clothing and the textile industry. Wow. So they moved to England in the late 60s.
Wow. So
I'm the first generation, and my children are the second generation here in the UK. So the business ethos all started with my family.
Where did your family originate from?
So both parents are from East Africa. Wow. My mother's family are from Nairobi in Kenya. Wow. And my father is from Uganda.
Wow. Do you know, it's funny actually you say that. I had a guy in my class who was from Uganda.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, his parents were originally from there. There's been a lot of challenges from there, and they moved over to England. Yes. It's got a lot of influence from people from the subcontinent who went to Africa who've come to England.
Yes.
I went to Leicester, and you can see so many entrepreneurs from there.
Yeah.
And they've got that similar journey.
Yes.
And did that shape them as parents? Did it shape them how they thought and all the rest of it?
Yeah, I think it did. And the reason why I say that is obviously Uganda was up in arms because of the Idi Amin fiasco that happened in the 60s and 70s. So part of it was entrepreneurial decision to move to England, but the other side was it was a fear of their lives and fear of their family. So they wanted to get up and move on. So when they left Africa, they were all self-employed entrepreneurs in that space. But when they moved over to England, they started working for other people, other businesses, and predominantly they were working for British Telecom.
Wow, okay.
That's where they started. But then with the entrepreneurial mindset, they couldn't work for someone else. They wanted to, be a lead in their own business. So hence why they then started their own business here in the UK. and followed suit.
I think it's interesting you say that, because do you know what? I've met so many people who are like second, third generation, including myself, who have got a similar kind of journey where their parents have come here, they've acclimatized, tried to understand to start a journey, and then they've gone to where they're naturally pulled away to being entrepreneurs, because it's quite a lot of entrepreneurs from the subcontinent. I think it's way higher than the percentage of minorities of the population in the United Kingdom, from what I've seen.
Yeah, well, listen, the stresses are there for sure, being an entrepreneur and being a leader of your own destiny. But you know, the fruits are there as well.
Absolutely, and we're going to get more into this. You're going to love this, right? So your parents were your driver.
Yes.
So they've got, as you mentioned, you know, their journeys. That got you into an entrepreneurial mindset. But how did you, because you were an employee as well, weren't you? You obviously went through that journey yourself.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so my career started back in 2003. So I'm not very academic.
Right,
you know, if you give me a book to read, I'll be like, Z, come on. You know, take it back. Let's have a conversation like we're having now. So I've never been book smart. I've never really wanted to open a book. I've never really wanted to prosper in that way. So I completed my GCSEs, came out pretty strong, not as strong as I liked. My mother wanted me to become a barrister or a lawyer of some sort, but that never happened, unfortunately. I am pushing my children to become lawyers. Typical Asian thing, right? A doctor or a lawyer.
Or accountant.
Or an
Don't
accountant
forget that
as
one.
well, yeah.
They're the three that everyone always talks about.
So yeah, that was the ambition, but obviously that clearly vanished, and I couldn't become a lawyer for obvious reasons. But I started my career with Halifax Bank in 2003, and how that came about was pure accidental.
Yeah.
So I put on a suit. So 2003, I was how old was I? God, I was about 18 years old, give or take. I don't know what the maths was. So I was 18, I finished college and did all my bits and pieces there. I put on a suit in the morning, and from Hayes in Harlington Station, for anybody that doesn't know, it's right near Heathrow Airport, I jumped on a train to central London.
Wow.
So I printed off a bunch of CVs. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys are old enough to watch this, but it's a CV, it's an A4 document that gives your experience of your academics and your employment history. Obviously, being at quite a young age, I didn't have much of a CV, but I had my name, address, and sort of basic information. So I went to central London, handed out my CVs, and I don't even know what job I was even applying for or seeking, to be honest. So there was no real plan, but it's probably how my entrepreneurial spirit comes about, and that's probably what we'll talk about a bit later. But so I went to central London, handed out a bunch of CVs, and then I came back and I still had some CVs. So I came out of Hayes Station. Obviously, I wasn't driving at that stage. I think I was 16 actually, or 18, I can't remember. But anyway, so I came out of Hayes Station. I thought, you know what, the bus is taking too long for me to come. Let me walk up to the next bus stop. And I have to walk through a town called Hayes Town, which is sort of a pedestrianised town where there's no vehicles go through. So I walked through the town, and back in the early 2000s, you'll probably notice there was a lot of banks on the high street. Not like now, unfortunately, where they're closing down left, right and centre. But I handed my CV into a Halifax branch, and I still remember a guy there at the reception desk. His name was Howard. Tall guy, Howard at the reception, and it was just coincidentally, he was the branch manager. Yeah. He liked me. He liked the look of me. I was obviously dressed quite smart. And he said, he goes, are you available for a quick chat now? And I was like, yeah, sure. I've got all the time in the world. So we sat down. I passed the interview with him first. I think 2 or 3 days later, I had a telephone interview and then an in-person interview about 3 weeks later. And I got the job.
Let me just uncap all that, right? You went into a branch and got an interview straight away?
Yes, I swear to God.
Wow.
I swear to God. I still remember the guy's name, Howard. So Howard, if you're watching this, I miss you, mate, and thank you for all the opportunities you gave me.
Wow, so unpacking that, you go through all the different, so you got an interview, and he pretty much offered you the second interview after that?
Yeah, literally straight away. I had the second interview. I think I had to come back a couple of days later to do a telephone interview, some sort of vocab test and a bit of mathematical testing, but pretty straightforward, and I was pretty strong in that. And then, yeah, got the job straight away. I couldn't believe it.
And that got you into banking and finance, right?
Yeah.
That was your first probably major step into it.
That was my first role, my first step into the banking world. I started off as a cashier. You know, there's not many cashier positions available now at the moment, not enough tellers around, but I did cashiering, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I remember people paying in £200, taking out 300 and all that stuff, and you have to make sure your bank, your till tallies up at the end. But that was really good times, you know.
I guess that sort of gives you exposure to entrepreneurs, because normally they're the ones coming banking the cash, right?
Yeah.
They normally got like a business, and obviously cash was quite prevalent then, right?
Yeah, and being in Halifax, because they were really good at savings, with the bank. They also had a big book of mortgage customers. And they also had business banking with the Bank of Scotland.
Right.
And I ventured into Bank of Scotland thereafter in 2007. So I was for 3 or 4 years with the Halifax retail side, and I became the youngest branch manager there as well.
just for our viewers who may not, someone who's got like a lot of banking knowledge, right? It used to be called HBOS, Halifax and Bank of Scotland, and then Lloyd's bought it. After that, that's the journey of that bank.
That was the journey. Yeah. That's the journey I took as well in my career with Lloyd's Banking Group.
Right. So now you can understand Akhil's little journey. So you've got into the thing. You've worked. How long did you work for Halifax for?
So I worked with Halifax between 2003 and 2006.
Wow.
Did various roles within the retail banking branch.
Yeah.
Then 2006 to 2009, I worked for Bank of Scotland.
Right.
In the London office, and I was a private banking manager. So I was looking after the affluent people, looking after their private banking.
Right.
And then when the financial crash happened in 2008, Lloyd's took over HBOS. I then internally moved from Bank of Scotland to Lloyd's Banking Group, and I was a credit analyst in central London at the head office in Gresham Street.
Right, so you transition from customer facing to high net worth.
Yes.
Then you transition to the back office at the head offices.
Back office at the head office, yep.
Yes.
They were doing analysis on Southern European banks, and they were trading banks. So the banks would lend to one another. So it was interesting times, really, really good.
So you worked in risk, yeah?
I worked in credit risk, exactly. That was the exact title. So
Right.
I used to do analysis on credit agencies I used to do credit analysis on banks that were in certain countries, Southern European countries, using Moody's and S&P and Fitch. So I was collecting data and analysing
Wow,
that.
I actually got a family member who works Moody's quite high, so I understand that. So right, so you worked and you understood credit, which is quite thing. How did you go from employee and saying, after how many years, I think, was it 11 years you were telling me?
Just shy of 10, 9 years, 11 months with HBOS.
Right, wow, so 10 years, and then said, in a nice way, sod it, I'm going to now become an entrepreneur. How can you explain to the audience how that journey happened from employee, your mindset shift, and then actually doing it? Because a lot of people think about it and they don't do it, or they don't think about it but execute it in the right way. So give us a bit of insight on that.
Though the context, the idea was coming in my mind every single day of the year. I was there just for 10 years, and every single day I was like, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to go to work. And my wife will remember this really, really well. I used to call in sick all the time. I used to wake up, I hope
Halifax, you're not watching this, right?
I used to call in sick so often. Most of the time it was for good reasons, but sometimes I had a bit of a man flu or something, I'm not going in, I can't be bothered, and so on and so on. So I used to call in sick, and there was no real drive for me. As much as I really loved working for the bank and interacting with people, that was my real spur and all that good stuff, but I just couldn't be asked because I wasn't really ambitious enough to really enjoy that momentum. So in me was, I could never take orders. I hate taking orders, and I hate someone saying, oh, you've got to be in for 9. And if I arrived at 9:05, it would be a one-to-one meeting, in a room asking why, especially when you're catching trains and buses and so on. So I never enjoyed that aspect of it. And then likewise, obviously with the family background of being entrepreneurs and self-employed business owners, I always had that in my mind that I want to actually pursue this one day, but I was too naive, I was probably too young, that I didn't know what I was going to do and how I was going to do it.
So that was the mindset and what drove you and what your why was on that.
Yeah.
How did you actually, you didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to hand my notice in Halifax and open a business. Something you would have done probably some groundwork, did you before? Or did you literally, I'm finishing Friday and starting Monday? Yeah,
no, it's actually interesting you said that. So while I was working with the bank, I was enjoying what I was doing, but I had a lot of conflicts with a lot of the internal staff, especially with the head management as well. So we didn't see eye to eye, and I basically resigned.
Right, okay.
So just shy of 10 years, I resigned. I missed out on a bonus for a 10-year anniversary, but hey, it is what it is. So I left, and I was in a bit of cuckoo land by then. So I've got 2 young children.
Yeah.
So I had my first child at 27, and now he's 13. And then I had my second child, who's now 9. So I've got 2 boys.
Yeah.
In between my first and second, I left the bank.
Right.
And I thought, you know what, let me start what I can start. What can I do on my own? I've always loved property. I've always invested in property. I bought my first property the year before I got married at the age of 20. Got married at 21. So I bought my first property, and that gave me a bit of a footing into property.
Wow.
And alongside that, I worked for the bank, obviously. So I knew terminology. I knew how the mortgages work. I knew what a bank account was and how to manage money. So I bought that. And then I had that entrepreneurial spirit on the side where I wanted to do like a little side gig. I wanted to do like a little social experiment. So I opened a car wash. So I went from banking, working in a suit with a tie on, into a car wash. And
Wow.
I opened, it was really funny. So this is where the entrepreneurial spirit comes into it. Because I live by Heathrow. Heathrow is Heathrow Airport, and there's a bunch of hotels on the Bath Road. So I thought, okay, what's the best way of finding car park space? Where can I find brilliant car park space where they see a lot of cars come in? So I had the mindset that a hotel would be a great idea. So I went to every single hotel by foot, and I went in and I spoke to the general manager. Have you got space? This is what I want to do. And I think only the second from last hotel I went to was the Crown Plaza.
Wow.
By Stockley Park. So I went there, I spoke to the gentleman, I said, this is what I want to do. He goes, oh, perfect. We've got some land at the back there, which is not used. You can have that. And I was like, okay, are you sure? And he was like, I wasn't expecting that answer. So I opened a car wash there, and then I thought, okay, fine. I've got hotel car parking for guests. We'll do a discount for those guys. And then it was this quite early when Uber was just about starting off. So I contacted Uber. I remember a Brazilian guy I spoke to, I forgot his name now. And I said, listen, this is what I've done. This is a great location. Uber drivers can't park around Heathrow without being given tickets. I said, you can park in this car park. As long as you have a car wash at a discounted rate, you can stay there for 3 hours with no problem. So he loved it, I loved it, and it was guaranteed business on day one. But guess what happened?
What?
So I opened the car wash in November I can't remember what year it was. I opened it in November. And what happens in November in England is quite cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I only live around the corner from that car wash, that hotel, Crown Plaza. I used to live by Stockley Park. So the next morning, me and one other guy turn up. And I wasn't expecting a huge amount of cars in because we're a new startup business. But I had put the feelers out on social media and obviously with Uber.
Wow.
So I turned up in the morning.
What year is this now we're talking about?
This was, okay, 1 second. My son was born, Kyan was born in 2014. So it was 2012.
2012.
2012.
Right, okay, context.
Okay. So 2012, late 2012. So I turned up at this car wash, yeah? So it was already set up. We set everything up, and the next morning we turned up. So I turned up. I turned the tap on. You know, the car washer taps. There was no water coming out. Because what happened, well, the night before, it was a cold night, so the taps froze. So all the pipes froze, the water was frozen within the pipes. But what I should have done was left the tap on drip mode, so the water's still leaking, or I should have put foam around the pipes, right, so they don't freeze up. So I had about, I think, literally about 8-9 cars waiting to get washed, and I had frozen pipes. But as an entrepreneurial and someone that is not very good with tools, I set up an arrangement with the hotel to say the electric and water bill was paid by them. I had to pay a flat rate. But also inclusive was the maintenance of anything that breaks down, electrical or plumbing. So every hotel has someone available 24/7, right?
Wow.
So I got them over, they fixed the repair, they did everything, and we started washing about 30 minutes later.
Wow.
Which was phenomenal.
So that is one lesson for the audience watching. When you're an entrepreneur, it never goes the way you plan. It really doesn't.
100%.
You've got to think on your feet, as they say. You were thinking on your feet.
I swear to God, I was sweating. When you got 7, 8, 9 cars looking at you, and I was like, what do I do? And then I had that spark. Oh, by the way, we're at a hotel. We've got the agreement. Wow. They came out, fixed it, and dealt with it, which was phenomenal. We had so many other problems. We had the electrics were tripping because we're using high jet washes and the circuits weren't as powerful. They would trip and all sorts. And then, but lucky we had the resources from the hotel, which is literally 50 yards away. The guy would just call on and say, mate, come on.
So you went from nothing, you used different channels to advertise and market it, you built relationships, you can see I'm unpacking what he's done, it's just mind-blowing. How long did you run the car wash for? Okay, so I opened it in November, I sold it in February. Wow! And I swear to God, so I bought it in November, I started off, and I sold it in February, late February. And the reason why I sold it was, I think car washes, it's like there's only certain communities that own and run car washes. We became quite successful within a 2-month span where people were coming to look at our car wash and say, how have you got so much trade coming in? So what happened was, I think in December, one guy came to me and said, we want to buy your car wash. And he gave me like a ridiculous figure. I was like £2,000. And I was like, no, we're worth much more than that. You know, as business owners, we think we're worth more. It's like your own house, right? It's always worth more. So another guy turned up in February and said, I want to buy your car wash. And he gave me like a ridiculous amount of money he was offering. And he goes, leave your car jet washes, leave everything as it is. And we got all these fancy sprays and cleaning materials, and they're not cheap. He goes, leave everything is, and I'll pay for your bit, I'll buy you out, sorry. Are you interested? And I was like, you know what? It's not bad going for 3-4 months work. So I was like, okay. And by this time, because
it's a labour-intensive job. A lot of staff kept turning over. Yeah. So I would advertise through Gumtree. I remember that, Gumtree. Gumtree for me was a great place to find people that wanted to work in car washes.
Got it.
So if anybody wants to labour people, try Gumtree. This was 2013 or 12 or something like that. So, you know, it might not work now, but it definitely worked for me. But in 3 months, I went through about 20 odd staff.
It's tense.
And I was then washing as well. I don't mind it. When I was a young kid, when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, not like my children now, lazy buggers, but I was washing cars and all sorts. But then it took me back in my time to washing cars, getting down and doing all the tires and being very OCD. I knew how to clean cars, and the drivers were loving it because I was really thorough. And I was using 2 sponges, 2 buckets and all that jazz. What was I just saying?
So you sold the business, and you got an offer.
Got the offer.
You were saying about the labour intensity wise causing a problem.
And I lost a lot of weight. I lost a lot of weight, half to do with stress and half to obviously bending up and down and doing that.
Because you're subject to the money that you get in, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got to pay the staff and all the rest of it.
Yes.
So you sold the business.
Yeah.
What did you do after you sold the business?
Okay, so when I sold the business, I said to myself, I need to fix up. And that's probably very layman's term. I need to fix up and get my sit in order. Yeah. Are we allowed to swear in this podcast?
It's all good. It's called Next Level Finance Podcast.
It happens.
Whatever goes,
it happens. So I thought to myself, listen, car washing is not me. I want to become an entrepreneur. What can I do? What do I know? So I've invested in property since the age of 20. Yeah. I've worked in banking and finance since 2003. Let me take it back.
Before you go in there, are you happy to disclose how much you sold the business for?
I sold the business for £25,000.
Wow. So just think about that. You run a business from November to February. Yeah. About 4 months in my numbers stack up. So about 4 or 5 months he's run the business and he's gone from 0 to 25k cash for the off of that. Look how entrepreneurship works.
And that was virtually all profit because a couple of machines, a couple of sprays cost me £5,000-6,000. The canopy cost a lot of money, but this is £25,000 net.
So he bought the assets as well as the
He took everything, said just leave it. He goes, just leave it.
So you probably end up making about 19, 20 on.
Yeah, easily. Okay. And then what we made during the day paid for the salaries as well. So it was
got it. So now you've sold that.
Yep.
Now you're going into jewellery, is that right? Thinking about jewellery.
I was, yes. I started a Shambhala bracelet, and this was actually before the car wash.
Wow.
So I don't know if your viewers might remember, but there was like these beaded bracelets. They were called Shambhala bracelets.
Right.
They're quite an in thing between 2010 and 2012. So this is back to the entrepreneur mindset. I thought, you know what, I like the look of this. I'm importing them from the US. They were good quality, and I bought them for myself because I liked that jewellery look. I thought, what can I do? And there was a program for your viewers that might know. It's called Made in Chelsea. Okay. So Made in Chelsea is like The Only Way is Essex, those sort of programs, like this evening stuff programs. So I contacted a guy using Twitter, and this is early days when Twitter was first alive in 2009 or 2010. Wow. So Jamie Lang, if you're watching this, thank you again, buddy. But Jamie Lang, I tweeted him and I said, Jamie, I've got these bracelets. I want to send them to you and your friends on the show. So I posted them to them and they really liked them. So they invited me to lunch. It was Jamie Lang, Hugo and Spencer Matthews, the 3 main characters. So they invited me to Chelsea in Kingsroad for lunch. I ended up having lunch with those guys, gave them a few bracelets, took pictures. And then that's where the entrepreneur came into me even more. And I thought, you know what, I can make a business out of this. So I ended up starting selling bracelets. And I was then invited to a bunch of clubs, events, and all this sort of stuff where, like their peers and the celebrities in that field would all come together. Wow. And I would give them free bracelets in exchange for pictures and for them to tweet the company name, take a picture of the company was called Ari Couture. Right. And Ari is short for my son's name, the eldest son, Aryan. So I called it Ari Couture. Wow. So I had these bead bangle bags made up, nice velvet, good quality stuff. So we ended up doing that, and I asked the celebrities to tweet it in exchange for free bracelets. So I made a big business out of that.
So let me unpack what Akhil's done. So he's infiltrated a marketplace by getting relationships where established people are. Yeah. Was it something Chelsea, did you say?
Made in Chelsea.
Made in Chelsea. Yeah. And then they've used it using their celebrity status as influence marketing, that's what we call it, or influencer marketing, to promote your product. Yeah. Wow. Lot of knowledge there for people to unpack and value.
And it was all by chance. Everything was just by chance. And it goes to show that if you don't try...
I'm going to push back on that. I don't think it's by chance. I genuinely believe you make your own luck, right? Because you had to push yourself, have the guts to tweet someone, go through with it, all this stuff. Most people don't do this. You have to back your ability. Yeah. So I think chance or good luck happens to people who keep on knocking on the door.
I appreciate
it.
Yes,
there's a famous saying, Gary Player, more I practice, more lucky I become.
Yeah, I have that saying on my office.
Yeah.
The harder I work, the luckier I get. That's my saying. I have it on my office wall.
And I think he just puts it in a nutshell, doesn't it?
Yes.
So please carry on, please.
So, no, you are totally right, and I really do appreciate it. But again, I don't like to, say I did this, I did all that.
It's good. It's good. You need a balance.
And I think, and even now in my business today, I'm not frightened to ask. I'm not frightened to showcase, or it's got to be a fair exchange. Just generally, I'm giving you a bracelet in exchange for you to promote my business. It's not a bad gig. So I still use that philosophy to today, today as well in business. It's got to be a fair exchange. You've got to be open and honest, and you've got to be transparent.
So I totally agree with that. So your business now, you've gone from the car wash business you sold, you've gone infiltrated into the jewellery business. How long did the jewellery business last for?
So my jewellery came before the car wash. The jewellery was about 18 months.
Right, okay. So you were running that on the side as well.
Yes.
Then what did you do after that? And how did you exit the jewellery to
the jewellery, I knew the jewellery was always going to be a side gig, a short-lived thing, a short-lived philosophy.
A trend.
Yeah, it was a trend, and it was a trending bracelet. I don't know if Shambhala bracelet's still around or not, but it was very short-lived. So banking, Shambhala bracelets, car wash. I was in a position where, I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you. I was still quite young, but with quite an adult mindset I had still going on. So I thought, I need to home it in. And my good wife, my wife, I was with her for 4 years prior to getting married. Yeah. So we met each other at college, 16 to 20, got married at the age of 21. People still cannot believe it. And genuinely, it wasn't forced or anything like that. It was a love marriage, and I still love her to bits. So we got married at 21. I'm now 40 years old. So we've been together more than half our lives.
Wow.
And I'm in a generation where I think people now are getting married at mid-30s, late 30s now, and having children a lot later, which, I'm not going to discredit it. You've got to find the right person before you have children, all that sort of stuff. It's pivotal.
I think one of the things, and it reads us nicely onto, is that you need stability.
Yes.
Right? So while you're doing entrepreneurial activities, your wife was working, right?
Yes.
So to get the numbers to work, you need some kind of source of money, because entrepreneur world is up and down, which is going to lead us nicely onto our mortgage broker, your current business, right? When did you start our mortgage broker then?
So we started that in May 2018, so we're just shy of 6 years.
So 5-6 years between 2012 and 2018, what were you doing? What were you up to?
So it was, it goes back to the unknown. I wasn't sure what I want to do. I was going through that phase genuinely where I thought up to 2013, I thought I knew what I was going to get myself into. I thought banking was my life. I'd get into investment banking and see it through. But I didn't enjoy working for someone. That jumping on the train, being there for 9, not leaving my desk till 5. And I wanted that. I wanted something a bit more to give me a bit more motivation. Somewhere where that I wasn't salary capped. I'm going to earn X amount each month, no matter what. No more, no less. And I wanted to see past that. And I wanted to eat at lovely restaurants, as you can see. I wanted to wear better stuff. I wanted to buy good watches and all this sort of stuff. I know it's very materialistic, but I feel proud that my hard work has achieved certain things. And it could be family holidays, it could be items and so on. But I knew that there was more to life than just having an income.
No, absolutely. And there's a balance, isn't it? Because when you go from employee, a guaranteed, or relatively, there's no guarantee in income, but relatively guaranteed income, to entrepreneurship, whichever structure your business you start with, you have this challenge because it normally obviously starts at 0. To be honest, it doesn't even start at 0, it stands in minus numbers. People don't realise, because you've got to, normally you invest a bit of money in to buy the equipment, marketing, whatever, all it is, and your time.
Yes,
so you're not getting salary, so you had 5-6 years, which you were just thinking about what you were doing, and you probably did.
I was scraping.
Different things.
Yeah.
You ended up starting our mortgage broker in 2018.
Yes.
Right. Why did you choose that? Is that your experience and your knowledge before that drove that? Is that what it was?
I think, okay, so while I was at Halifax in 2008, I actually sat my CMAP qualification. And CMAP's a qualification that you need to acquire to give regulated advice. So in 2008, while I was at Halifax, I thought, let me order this textbook and sit this exam. But like I said right at the beginning, you give me a book, I can't open it and study. It's not my thing. So I didn't even open the book, and I remember it was a ring binder, green, by this bunch. And I thought, you know what, don't worry about it. I can sit the exam and I'll pass it. Don't worry about reading it. I went to the exam, and guess what happened? I failed. because I didn't open the book. So I put it to bed because I was doing well at Halifax. I was earning a bonus and all this sort of stuff. I thought, forget it. But as I did the Shambhala braces, as I did the car wash, I said, you know what? I need to home it in. My family's growing. There's only so much I can scrape and, you know, nickel and dime wherever I need to go. So I need to fix up. Yeah. So I said to myself, okay, let's bring it back to where we all started. I love property. Yeah. I know banking and finance because I've done it for over a decade. Yeah. Let me bring it all together. I'm a big believer of property is a great asset class for the long term because it produces income if you buy it right, get the right value and so on. And also you can pass it down to your family and your wealth. It's a form of wealth that you can pass down. Obviously being in your position, you'll know how to structure that and we can move things across to the family.
Just unpack that. Legacy planning is so important and that's what you're talking about. And as long as you do it properly, you can try to maximise that benefit transfer because you've got something called inheritance tax these days or capital gains tax.
Well, let's hopefully it abolishes it on Wednesday. But,
at the time
as we're recording this,
the
4th of March.
There's a lot of fun. Okay, so you still were doing bits and bobs between 2012 to 2018. Yep. Did you say you were in employment in that time?
So, yeah, I was in employment. I had small stints at Royal Bank of Scotland. I was doing invoice discounting. I worked at Metro Bank as well. So I was trying to get back into the banking space. But because I was an employee, I couldn't get that. I wanted to let go of that. So I then thought, I love banking, I love finance, I love property. Let me merge it. Let me just hone it in. Let me go back to where my real desires are. It's property, it's banking, it's finance. So I sat the exam in 2017, opened the textbook, genuinely read it all, and I passed the examination.
Wow. Okay. So now you're CMAP, which is the official for mortgage broker.
Yeah, it's an official qualification. So you can now advise on mortgages, on regulated mortgages. So I set up my company. It's called Our Mortgage Broker. Says as it does on the tin. I set up the business on my own from my bedroom or kitchen table, however you want to dress it up. But I set up on my own. 2018. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have any big goals. I just wanted to start something of my own that I can be proud of.
Got it.
So I put my whole heart into setting it up, thinking of the name, opening the bank account, doing the basic steps. And because I've got the banking experience, I've got contacts that go back to 2003. So that played a pivotal part. And wherever I go, and I think just generally, I'm quite a people person. And I think being a people person attracts, good minds, good quality people. And I honestly do think I'm a trustworthy person, I'm a good, honest person, and I say it as it is.
That's the way to be.
Some people, even my wife, my wife thinks I'm quite short sometimes, or, she wants a long answer. I'm like, I don't need to give a long answer. I either like it or I don't, right?
No, to be honest, that's quite interesting. We'll get onto that. So the approach, because everyone's approach is unique. Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt the podcast. Hope you're getting a huge amount of value from this. Just going to be quick, 2 seconds. First of all, to let you know, in the comments below, we have got links to free business guides that can help you on your entrepreneur journey. They include exclusive footage from Sky TV episodes that I've done and a whole load of other content in there. Whether you're a growing business, property investor, property developer, or if you want to love the fun of SaaS pensions. Please do look at those. And if you still want more help, get in touch. The contact details are below. I hope you enjoy the podcast. So in your case, you've gone in, you started the mortgage broker business, right? And now you got no clientele at the moment.
Yes.
Right. How did you get clientele for your business? Because a lot of the entrepreneurs or want-to-be entrepreneurs are watching this and they want to know, you've done the transition, you said you're going to do it, you've made that, you got the professional qualification while you're in employment, that's related to what business you want to do, similar to what myself and many others have done. And now you're pushing hard, right? How did you get your first client? How did that go about?
So it goes back to who you know. When I started my own business, I made sure that I told everyone what I'm doing. And because...
When you say everybody, do you mean friends and relatives?
I mean everyone. I mean everyone. I mean the milkman, the Amazon delivery guy. I mean everyone. And I go and I say the same thing to my children. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and what you want from life. And no one's going to say, oh, look at this guy looking for freebies and that sort of stuff. All I do is, I'm qualified. I have access. I can probably find you solutions. Just give me your time and an opportunity. And I think as long as you come across in that manner, people then warm to you and they feel like they can trust you, because the biggest part of business is trust.
Absolutely.
And I think if you've got the trust sown or you've got a good opportunity where the trust is building, because trust builds over time.
Yes.
But as long as you're trustworthy or you're building on, you're both on that same page, but also you've got like-mindedness.
Yes.
I understand where you want to go because I've either got a similar background or I've got clients that are on the similar journey as you. So I can then correlate or, you know, showcase, this is how we did it, this is what we did, or I've seen this before, by the way.
Great points that Akhil's done. Just for the entrepreneurs, he's talking about the mindset of an entrepreneur, and many people probably heard the cliche know, like and trust. It's not just talk, and content always add to that now these days. You have to know someone to be aware of them. You then have to sort of like them to want to do business, and the like then leads to trust because you see what they're doing, and that's why the content helps. When you're doing on social media content, helps build all that. So you utilize that. Your first client.
My first client, I still remember him, a guy called Jason.
Right.
Jason was my first client, and whenever I meet him, I always say to you, my first client. And I think he feels quite proud of that, actually. He's my first client, and I'll never forget. And, you know, from there, it's all about blossoming relationships. You know, it's, you know, social media is powerful. You are certainly right. In today's genre that we're in, today's world that we live in, I'm sort of a hybrid where I'm quite old school and I love this relationship, but also I'm young enough to understand how iPhones work and how Twitter works and Instagram works. So we're probably living in a great life now because we've got best of both worlds. But I will never, you know, warm too much on social media side because I still want this, because you can't do this on social media.
Of course.
So, you know, how I started the business was, you know, exactly that. Putting my content out on social media, being open, transparent, providing case studies, providing knowledge, providing, did you know, hot tips, this sort of stuff. Things that people can relate to, because I'm not a salesman.
Even back in 2018, so you were doing it. Which platform were you using?
So I used Facebook and Twitter first, those two, and then I went on to Instagram and LinkedIn. Now, I think all social media is good, and I think every business owner should be on all platforms, but use each platform differently. So I'm still trying to learn that side of it all, because every platform should be longer format than the other. Some should be shorter, some should be videos only. You know, I'm not on TikTok at the moment, or TikTok, whatever they want to call it. I know it used to be about dancing. I know it's a bit more professional now, but I think it's just using your time wisely and putting the right content out there.
So unpack that. It's platforms and culture about social media. So Jason, first client. How did you get him? Was it from face-to-face or social
Face-to-face. I met him at a networking event,
So you went networking event. A lot of people, I hope you're listening. This is what Z talks about in his post and thing. You went networking, you met him, he spoke to you, and he was like, yeah, I actually need a mortgage. Was it for his main house or buy-to-let?
No, it was for a buy-to-let property. So, we can do stuff on social media, but again, we should do networking. You're a serial entrepreneur, networker, I should say, as well, Z. I see you on your YouTube and all that sort of stuff. And you know what it is? You're there to help others. And if you can help them, I'm sure there are reciprocal in this business to be had both ways.
I think you put it in the nutshell. The journey. I love speaking to entrepreneurs. I hope that comes across. People like yourself and many others who are humble enough for us to come and give us their insight of their journey and helping share that, because ultimately for me, one of the biggest ways to grow your wealth is trading businesses. Right? Because you need somewhere where cash is coming from. And you can use property as which I'm a huge advocate, to invest in, depending on your time and what you want to do, right? But people don't know that journey and they don't know how to generate cash, right? Because you can use leverage to a certain point, but you need some cash to be investing in business, especially if you're going to invest in property. And it seems like you sort of done that journey. And I think, you know, it goes back to that old cliche of cash is king, and cash is definitely king. And talking about travel, I totally forgot. Between that 2013, 2018, I was a chauffeur as well. And I'm not even joking to you. So how that came about was, again, because I was going through that 5 or 6 years of the unknown, I was a chauffeur. I forgot, 16 months. And you know what? That job there taught me everything I know now. Shall I tell you why? Go on. Because
I used to pick up entrepreneurs or business owners or business leaders that were traveling in business and first class. So the company that I worked for, they were based in Brentford. They used to pick up business and first class passengers that were traveling on Emirates and Qantas. Okay. So I used to pick them up from Heathrow, Terminal 3 predominantly, take them to a London-based hotel. Or a private aviation, Farnborough, Biggin Hill, and all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, how do I be in the back seat rather than the guy in front of the steering wheel? So I was always having that mindset. And the other thing that I always enjoyed about that job was gratuity. I used to drop people at hotels. They used to give me a 10 or a 20 quid. Some were giving me 50 quid of a trip. And I was like, well, this is pretty good.
Right.
But I still had that mindset, is that how can I be sitting in the back of the car, making my business phone calls, being on my laptop and doing work, and being driven to my next meeting or whatever. So I used to pick people up, take them to a restaurant, take them to another restaurant, take them to a bar, take them to another meeting. And I was like, I'm sitting in the car, I'm doing a damn good job, because I'd open the door, make sure there's cold water at the back for him or her and all this stuff. But I was like, there's more to life for me. That job taught me a lot, and I don't know why I even forgot about it.
But I want to unpack that bit, because did you utilize that to grow your network as well? Because you built relationships, you talking to the people. Yeah. Because I find that the people in chauffeuring or cabbing and things like this, I generally find they're the most knowledgeable entrepreneurs, because they have to learn how to talk to every type of person, because you don't know who's going to sit in the back. And people always do a disservice by they don't understand that they actually know a lot more about business than many other people. Someone who, when I go somewhere, I have a chat with them to understand if I'm going to invest in property, or if my clients are going to invest in property, or if they're doing business, what is happening in this area. If you want to learn quickly, they're the people. And
I'm going to tell you, so there's a couple of people that always stand out. I'm sure they're not going to mind. I don't know what the guy's name was. One guy was from Qatar.
Wow.
And he said to me, he goes, you're not made for this. He goes, you are an entrepreneur through and throughout.
Wow.
And that was just a conversation I was having with him from Heathrow to Central London. There was another guy, you guys might know, a chef by the name of Atul Kochhar.
Wow.
Atul Kochhar, he does BBC, he owns a bunch of Indian restaurants.
Right, okay.
It's quite a big celebrity chef.
Yeah.
I picked him up and had a massive, good conversation with him. He goes, if you want something, go and bloody do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You end up back where you are. So I always remember a few people out there, and I did meet someone from Royal Bank of Scotland, one of the head CEOs there. I will never mention who it was, but some of the board members. But I picked him up, went to his house, and all that stuff. We had such a beautiful conversation. Amazing. And it goes back down to just how you get on. Be calm, be yourself, and just have a nice conversation, because they're going to sit in your car, and from Heathrow to London takes the best part of an hour. And you've got so much time on your hand, and you don't want to be the first to talk, because in chauffeuring you shouldn't talk unless the passengers say something to you. I don't know, it's this thing. But I'm like, no, stuff that. I'm here to break rules.
I'm going to unpack something Akhil has given huge value. Don't you love it? Couple of tips. One, the person that you speak to anywhere on the journey, always showing respect, listening. One of the hardest skills. I don't care anybody. We always have to work on it. That's what Akhil's telling about. And secondly, I guess you connected with him on LinkedIn and all this.
I've still got so many people's numbers in my phone. So not
networking.
Just LinkedIn, it's mobile numbers.
Networking.
Yeah, and I think it's networking is key. You just don't know who you're going to meet. And I go I'm very. I go to the same restaurants, I go to the same bars, clubs, and all this sort of stuff. I don't go to clubs, probably a long time ago. But wherever I go, people know who I am. And I don't say that in a pompous way. I mean, they know who I am. They know I come here regularly. I'm respectful, and they know what I do from an industry standard. So I get a lot of referrals when I'm going to restaurants in my neighborhood and so on. And I say the same thing to my children. Be proud of who you are. Be polite. Be honest. And if you want to be something in life, whether it's a barrister like my mother wanted me to be, or you want to be a property entrepreneur and so on, tell people what you're looking for. Ask people, how can I be like you? Or tell me your top 3 tips or something like that. So don't be shy of asking for help or ask for guidance. And I've always done that, because I always say every day is a school day. There's always something to learn.
I think Akhil's put it in a nutshell. He's not only told you why you need to network and how to network, right? He's told you some of the key objectives. One, which Akhil does a lot, is always trying to help entrepreneurs, right? By giving the tips, the insights. I think you do goals on Sunday. I've seen that. Second bit is that he tries to be humble enough to listen to the other person to get their insight, because that increases his awareness and knowledge. Amazing. So that's how you overcome some of the business challenges to grow your business. Let's fast forward, right? Successes. I want to say is because time always flies on these Next Level Finance podcasts, right? So one of the successes, you've mentioned when we were talking off here was family.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm a huge advocate of this, and everyone will have different perspectives. But you having family early, you feel is one of your big strengths.
Oh, it's massive. That's been pivotal. I think that's been pivotal for my personal journey.
To the point, why do you feel that? Because a lot of people mention family generically, but they don't tend to always be specific.
Yeah.
Why do you feel having family young in your early 20s has been a huge benefit to you?
I think discipline first and foremost. It makes me disciplined. Second of all, it makes me get up in the morning and be a go-getter. And three, it just gives me, it sets my agenda for the day. I know, get the kids ready, drop them to school, do my day job, sometimes pick them on the way home from school and move on. So I think discipline is key. I think finding the right partner is pivotal. Yes. There's lots of trial and error. Yeah. You're always going to have arguments. Don't rush it. I have lots of friends and family that aren't married. But I say don't rush it because you can't rush these things. You don't want to get it wrong. But one of my biggest successes, as I said, is definitely my family. Yeah. From a personal standpoint.
I think you summarised it well for the audience and for myself as well. I think it's getting that balance.
Yeah.
That helped you get balance, because a lot of times people, if you can't balance and focus, because your personal life it affects your business. Yep. Right, you need the balance, and it sounds like the family has helped you, and your wife has helped you quite a bit, and your children as well. I wanted to talk about, because you've done the business 6 years now. Yeah, that's Our Mortgage Broker. We'll put the link in the comments so you hear about that as well. Right, what has helped you grow the business? Because I've seen, before we even spoke, I saw you on social media with certain people commenting on our network, right, and you were giving huge value and trying to help people understand the world of mortgages, and whether they're investing in their own house or as a buy-to-let investor. But how have you found that 6-year journey? You know, you told us how you started. How have you built a business that's going to be scalable and sustainable? How have you tried to do that?
How have I done it? I'm still doing it.
Of course, it's never ending.
Yeah, it's never ending. Every day's got its own challenges, but with challenges comes mindset, comes strength, and it creates activity. Yeah. So from my perspective, it's being visible in the market space. Yeah. Our market in the mortgage space is quite concentrated. There's plenty full of great mortgage brokers out there. Yeah. It's how do you stand out? And from my side, it's not, oh, we can offer you a great service and all that sort of stuff, and you know our rates are cheaper than someone else. It's not that. It's bringing it back home. Yeah. Understanding where the client is today in their journey, where they want to be, and how we can find solutions for them and grow with them. Yes. So I always tell my team this is not a transactional business. We're not transactional business people. We're here to provide one, a service, but two, actually an understanding of how our business works and how can we add support, add weight to their business, to their income, and creating a legacy alongside them. Because where we feel proud is providing that service that they can go away and recommend us. Wow. When they recommend us, then we know we've done a great job. And I tell my team, we have a meeting every Monday at 9:30. You always ask your clients for feedback. Always ask your client for referrals and recommendations, because that is the best form of referrals, and it's free. Yes. If you've provided someone with good expertise, good knowledge, good experiences, and good service, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to support you in your own business and grow.
I think it's also having them as someone who's advocating for you, shouting and rooting for you, makes a huge difference, because it shows you that you're doing something right. Yeah. Because you've just shown a classic how you differentiate in a crowded marketplace. Yes. What Akhil has just said, if anyone's watching on the entrepreneurs and evaluating, is when you've got a lot of people in your India space, and pretty much most industries will be like this, very rarely will you not have a lot of competition, is how do you stand out? And what Akhil's talking about is the customer journey, how he actually does it, not just say, oh, we do great service. Is because he's understanding the client, because we're not a name and number. Yes. We're individuals. Yep. Yeah. As you mentioned, your first client, if I remember, Jason, right? You mentioned by name. Yeah. That tells you what sincerity and what the relationship means to Akhil. Love it, Akhil. Right? Next bit I want to get onto, because it seems like the business aspect, you've got it, and it's growing and it's fantastic. Business awards, because one of the things we have to talk about, I know Akhil's humble and he'll be like, oh, I'm talking about business awards, but I think it's a good way. You got some business awards. Are you our mortgage broker? Can you just talk a bit about that? And why did you get them? What was the What was the driving and who gave them to you?
Yeah, sure. So we've been fortunate to be shortlisted for a number of awards over the last 6 years.
Fantastic.
One of the biggest, our most recent award was we won the best buy-to-let brokerage of the year.
Wow.
By Business Money Facts.
What year was that?
Last year, 2023.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
just nearly a year ago, I think it was in March, we won the award last year. And that's a great accreditation to be had from the industry. It's one of the biggest awards in our industry.
Wow.
And it goes to show, one, we were up against some massive players in the buy-to-let space, but two, I think it's a big kudos to the team.
What was
the efforts that they put in?
When they evaluated, what is the reason they gave you that award?
Good question, and that's a great question, because sometimes with these award shows, I think they can be bought. You buy a table, you sponsor something, and you win the award. Not saying all award shows are like that, but the reason why I love this award compared to the others that we've won is you can't buy the award, and the reason why I say that is Business Money Facts provide you with a link. Your customer, your client has to log in, click the link, and leave you a testimonial to say why you are deserved to win this award. So they have to leave you a testimonial.
Wow.
That's why I liked it. And they have to physically write a certain amount of words, bare minimum, to get an entry, if you like. So it has to be a testimonial to a certain degree. It has to be a certain amount of characters or words for them to be shortlisted to win the award. So you couldn't win it. It's not just tick the box, our mortgage broker, and then off you go. So it's a bit more longer. So the client's taken time out of his diary to put some words and mind and thoughts to it. So that's why I love that award. And that was because buy-to-let is predominantly our space, our business, 60-70% of our business is all buy-to-let led. That was a real good, and it was a nice piece to have. It was a nice thing in 5 years to win that award. And it was just shy of our 5-year anniversary as well.
It's a great kudos to you and the team on that. I want to just talk a bit more about that aspect. You talked about buy-to-let investors. And a lot of our viewers and people across all social media, they're entrepreneurs and they invest in property, which we always love, right? When you get clients these days, and it's just for knowledge, do they still invest in their own name or do they invest in limited companies?
Yeah, good question.
Is there been the big change? Has that happened from your opinion?
Yeah, I think the inquiries, whether it's personal or limited company, has increased in terms of I'm contemplating buying a limited company. We're having those conversations more so, and people are putting those questions to us. Should I not? Our first conversation is, always replies, have you spoken to an accountant? Have you spoken to a tax advisor? Because that's pivotal. Before you make a decision and buy that property in a company, have you taken the necessary steps? So from our perspective, we can say, buying a limited company is the best thing to do. But we don't know the intricacies of their background from a financial affairs. Even though we do a thorough fact find, but we want the client to be informed and get the relevant advice. So we'll always refer to accountants, tax advisors that can give them thorough information, and they provide that advice. So once the client has been given that advice, then we'll take them through the pros and cons of both in buying in a personal name and a company. And pros and cons meaning the costs of borrowing in both different entities, because the costs are different. So answer to your question is, the number of inquiries in a limited company is certainly going up since 2017. The number of transactions we are doing, there is certainly an uptake in limited company transactions. So that's very much true. More than half of the buy-to-let lenders in the market space are lending now in a limited company. So every year that is growing.
Just to unpack why we've asked that question, and Akhil's given great insight from a tax perspective, someone who specialises in property tax, there's something called Section 24, the dreaded tax on interest. That's what it's called on the streets these days, right? And this is what happened from 2017 onwards, and now it's full whack. So if you buy it in your own name, you get hammered if you're getting interest, especially depending on your circumstances, what you've got. That's why Akhil, and the trend why I'm asking, because I would be expecting a lot more people to buy limited companies, because the tax on interest doesn't apply to limited companies. The interest is fully tax deductible as an expense, whereas in your own name, depending on your circumstances, get an evaluation, it can cause a lot of problems. So it sort of makes sense that, thank you for that. I think it definitely makes sense. It's a fantastic answer. I want to move on to another thing, because one of the other things Akhil's achieved, and he has been a bit humble around, you got onto Sky TV. You know, as someone who has been on there as well quite a lot, right? That's a fantastic achievement. How have you found getting onto Sky TV, how has that affected your business, your personal brand, and your business brand? How have you found that?
I think being on anything in the media is always a good thing. It's a good show-off tool. It's great to put yourself out there, and it is. There's no two ways about it. To get into the mass media, it's quite important to do so as a business profile. Two, it helps you build your brand, build your exposure. You've done that very, very well there, Z. And I think that's kudos to you as well, right? It's all about ambition one. You know, I always think sky's the limit, and there's always something above the sky as well. So I think the more you put yourself out there, out the masses, as long as it's good content, trustworthy content, and you're a good, reliable source, do so. Don't fob anybody off. Don't give any nonsense talk on the internet and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that put stuff on social media for click count, you know, clickbait and all that sort of stuff. Just be mindful. We're running professional businesses here. We're arranging mortgages for people's homes as well as the investments as well. So what we want to do is, what we're doing, you know, certainly is we are certainly out there in the media. We were just in the This Is Online Daily Mail money page as well last week. We've been in national newspapers as well, providing good comments and good feedback on various things around mortgages and property finance. So from a brand awareness side, you know, the more awareness that we can get, the better it is.
I think Akhil's really summarised that well. It takes a lot of guts, especially when you're on TV. And 10 seconds of TV feels a long time, so you have to be very concise to the point, which you've also been doing in communicating the value, how you help people on their journey as an entrepreneur or a property entrepreneur especially. Love it. Right. The next bit I wanted to ask is, and this has been one of the things I think sticks out as one of your successes from what I see, is your relationship with other entrepreneurs, right? The reason why I saw you first was with one of our mutual people on our network, a mutual friend of ours, and a very successful, Ranjan Bhattacharya. I saw you on his YouTube channel. Check his out. And we've done a podcast with him, so you can check that one out as well. Is that network illustrates the caliber of people that you're working with, and also trying to help utilize their platform to allow them to trust you to share with all their audience, right, your unique message on financing.
Yeah, I think that relationship and that trustworthiness plays a pivotal part. And I've been fortunate to know Ranjan since 2016. So I've been on various channels of him, providing information around buy-to-let mortgages and so on. It goes back to your network is your net worth. And you've got to be in the right spaces. You've got to be amongst the right people, and people have got to. I always say it's important for people to recommend you even when you're not in the room. So I get it a lot that, you know, I was recommended by Joe Blogs to contact you, and I love that. Or if I go into a room or go somewhere, they know my name already, I'm like, I must be doing something right, which is a nice position to be in. But I'm always still very much humble, start from ground, basics if you like, support people, guide people, and just be open and honest. You know, that's what we're about, and that's how we've grown the business.
I think he's put in a nutshell, and I always talk about this in social media when we're trying to personal brand for entrepreneurs, especially own and manage business, is the key. And anyone who says otherwise, I would challenge how strong they know about business. Because previously you may have got away with it, but in the modern day, if you haven't got a personal brand or personal footprint, you will struggle in business, especially if you're competing with others. So I think that's quite huge.
And you've got to use modern technology like social media, right? Because everyone looks at social media. I'm not sure who goes on websites anymore, so you've got to look on Instagram first.
To be honest, they do go on your website once they know who you are. So the awareness comes from social media, and they go on the website, unless you're very good on Google. And I'm sure we get the marketing guys on this and saying, oh, it's different, everyone to their own. That's my experience been. I want to get onto your approach, because time is flying as always, right? Your approach, right? You mentioned, and I think we've gone through some of the approaches already, but I think one of the things I want to understand is, you mentioned family and your approach. You were talking about a conversation you were having with your wife on clothes and clearing the clothes out. How that communication and how to negotiate in the household and outside the household. Many entrepreneurs like myself be watching for the answer on this one. How did you, using that as an example, how do you manage those relationships? Because the home one is so important.
I think if you haven't got your home relationship right, then what chance have you got working with others outside? Because you're only going to speak to them only so often. When you're working with people at home, you've got to speak to them day and night, right? So I think I'm fortunate that I've known my wife, as I said, for more than half my life. So she knows me inside out as well as I know her inside out. But every day comes with its own challenges. And
of
a good example of that was just yesterday, where we said, you know what, let's have a bit of a spring tidy up and let's have a clear out of our clothes and all that sort of stuff. And women, you know, knowing women, they need a dress color and all colours in all the dresses and all sorts and shoes. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna lie on the bed. I'm gonna watch my YouTube channel. I was watching a bit of Z on Don's YouTube and all that stuff. So I had that playing, that content in the background, and the clothes will start coming out of the wardrobe. What do you think of this? No, too old. You haven't worn that for ages. Get rid of it. And those were my replies. Yeah. And she was like, why? Well, I've just said you haven't worn it for ages. I didn't even know you owned it. I think the pattern's gone out, and that's it. But I think that's maybe a masculine thing that I'm quite sure, in a pleasant way. I was very factual. You haven't worn it. I think the pattern's gone out of date. I don't like it, and I don't think, you know, I think you moved on from that design. So, and then she was like, I think she wanted to have a conversation about it, and I was like, and I think it was like she wanted a bit more from that conversation. I was like, no, I'm watching Z and I'm trying to sort out your wardrobe at the same time. So, you know, we need to figure it out. But again, it comes down to, I think, being disciplined in your approach is key. And I was factual, I was honest, and I gave you an opinion. But I am mindful, in business, you can't be like that. So as much as you want to be, as much as you think you know the answer, it goes back to the thing, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so listen more than you speak. And unless you know all the key facts, you can't provide a real thorough answer.
I think you put the right balance here, and just to let you know, us guys, we do get in trouble for this, right? Because everyone has a different perspective. So the conversation of clothes and things is one way, because you've got a relationship for 20 plus years, you know each other. She knows that you don't mean anything bad. You're just giving her the answer. Yeah. And it may not be the answer she wants to hear. But then you have the second thing, which is quite big, is how you relate it to business. Yes. Because the fact find, what you're talking about, trying to get the understanding and then to make better decisions is so important. Yeah, and in your business, very important, because if you get that wrong, you're advising them wrong, right?
Yeah, no, and we definitely don't want to be doing that. And we're not here to provide any shortcuts. You know, as much as we want to be really slick and swift and all that sort of stuff, you want to do everything thoroughly. So I always say, just give us the extra few minutes, give us the extra amount of information. We don't like to throw mud at a wall and hope it sticks. You know, that old cliche. So it's very, very important to us.
I think you've answered the next question, really, was about the client journey, right? And one of the things is your approach to the client journey. It's obviously deciding what the person is doing. Are they getting a finance for their house? Where does it fit in the 5, 10, 20, 30 years of what they look? I guess by taking that view, that oversight of the whole situation, that's probably why you're getting the awards and differentiation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, it is, and I thank you for that. I think depending on the person that we've got in front of us or on the other end of the line, we tweak our conversation to suit them. Yeah. It's not them suiting us. It's if we've got a first-time buyer that's moving out of their family home, we want to make them feel good about having the opportunity to buy their own home. So we want to make them feel ease. Yeah. We don't want to come up with any complexity, words and terminology and all this sort of stuff, because it's not needed. Yes. So I think having that approach where we can speak to a first-time buyer at their level is paramount, it's key. Yeah. But on the flip side, if we're dealing with a portfolio landlord who's been in the game for 20, 30 years, who's been there, done it, wore the t-shirt, we can be a bit more technical in our wordings. Our approach could be somewhat slicker, swifter, because they will know what the steps look like. So we'll probably skip step 1 and step 2 because they know it all. Or we will question them, did you know this? Because, you know, in every industry, things change, goalposts move. So we don't want to just skip it because we think they know it. We want to be certain that they do know it, and then we'll move on. But we'll balance our approach according to our audience.
I think one of the things I've noticed with Akhil and his team is collaboration. Yeah. And I think that is one of the differentiators.
Power team.
So important.
In today's day and age.
So important. Yeah. For me, constantly. So when people are buying their houses, whether they've got a main residence ready, there's stamp duty. So tax becomes an issue, right? And getting advice on that. Also, understanding the financing requirements in relation to whether they're working in jobs or are they an entrepreneur? How are they going to get the financing, and how are they going to fund the repayment and the interest payments? Because you've got that responsibility to make sure you've got that covered as a responsible mortgage broker, 100%. Because otherwise you're leaving them in a problem. And that's why I think these relationships are based on trust.
And we're there, even though we do a mortgage and give them a 2-year fix or a 5-year fix, we've still got constant dialogues and conversations we're having with them. We don't say, oh, we see you in 24 months. We don't do that because things can change. They might come into money. Not to say we always want to do business with them, but again, we want to do business, but have touch points with them along their journey. Because as I said, things change. People want to buy more properties and so on.
Yeah.
So we're very relationship driven. We're not transaction driven.
Yeah.
So even if we provide someone with advice, but they're not ready to buy their first home, so be it.
Yeah.
As long as we provide them the good service, hopefully they'll come back to us, and we have it all the time. I spoke to you 12 months ago, or 24 months ago, and it works
huge.
well. Yeah,
it's
100%.
huge. They've got that trust, isn't it?
Yes.
I want to talk about the different impacts of the business or some of the major things, because as I said, there's so much we have to cover and so much value. How has technology impacted your industry and business? I ask this question because every industry I've noticed technology is huge impacts. How has it affected the mortgage brokerage industry?
I think it's very much impactful.
Yeah.
I think there are so many softwares and techie systems out there that we can use, but I don't think all they are all fit for purpose.
Right.
And I think what I mean by that is you've got to use the systems that you can work with first.
Yeah.
They've got to be user-friendly, and also you've got to put the client. From a client's perspective, do they want to use this system?
Yeah.
Now it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where I like to have these sort of conversations and I like to use techie tools.
Yeah.
So I've got to have a good blend. So if we're going to adapt or pay for a subscription or a platform, I've got to think, okay, can my client work with this system? Is it user friendly, or is it a nice to have?
Yeah.
So it's got to be a must. It's got to. There's got to be positives out of it. So does it speed up the process? Does it allow for us to free up time to do other things? But it's always got to be pivotal, because our business is still very handheld as well. We've got to have that hand-holding exercise as well. It's not like, you can just, everything's electronic. It doesn't work that way, because there's always intricacies in every inquiry we have. So I think new technology is great. We love it. We'll always welcome it. We're never, anti it. Yeah. But we want to make sure it's fit for purpose, it's user-friendly, and the client will use it as well.
I think you've hit the nail. It's validating the customer journey, right?
Yes.
And how it's going to help them not be a hindrance. And sometimes technology can become a hindrance depending on who it is and what it's been used for.
People don't even like email, let alone any systems. They're more into WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff.
You hit the nail on the head. I want to get onto how you've done one of the things. What I've noticed on your newsletter, you've got like a calculator that you've done. How have you found that calculator is helping people for their financing leads or needs, I should say? Yeah. And how has that helped your journey as well as an entrepreneur?
So from a business perspective, we want to make our clients, we want to provide systems and tools that our clients feel user-friendly. So this tool is for clients that want to get a quick synopsis of what the mortgage rates look like for both, for three things. One is for bridging loans, one is development finance, and one's for commercial loans.
Got it.
So we've got a great tool that's accessible on our website, on our weekly newsletters, where if you're looking to buy a property, either via auction, for example, and you want a bridging loan quote, you fill in, literally take you 30 seconds of your time, fill in the information, and it will give you costs and fees related to a bridge loan. It will give you lenders to compare to. So we've created this tool for the clients to use at their own discretion, at their own time.
Wow.
So they can do some window shopping. And then when they feel the time is right, they can then contact us, or vice versa, we'll contact them. So again, it's using technology for both the client's ease, for suitable times that they can use the platform. And for us, we're providing another tool to our clients that hopefully increases their entrepreneurial journey and brings them more value.
Yeah, it makes their life easier, doesn't it? Big time. I wanted to also talk about one of the things is, how did Brexit, because everyone always asks this question, always asks the entrepreneur, what was your views, first of all, on Brexit? Were you person remain or leave?
Yeah, so I was a camp of leave.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm it's on the camera, and I've said it on many podcasts and stuff like that. So I voted out, and the reason why I voted out was just simply because I think it goes back to the entrepreneurial spirit. I don't like to be told what I can do. I don't want to ask Germany, can I do this or whatever. So I thought, we've got our own currency, we've got our own nation, our own monarchy, and all this stuff. I think what the problem with Brexit was it was missold.
Right, okay.
And also they didn't have a plan of when they come out, what are they going to do and how they're going to create stuff. Unfortunately, the loss of leaving the European Union has meant a lot of the labour force has disappeared.
Yes. The
quality in hospitality has dropped. Costs and fees and services have gone up. So I don't think they've really mapped this through. And I was at an event last week and Philip Hammond, the ex-chancellor, was there, and he made a speech about what's coming up potentially in the budget coming up.
Just to unpack what Akhil said, he's given his reasons why he thinks why he initially did it and why he doesn't think it's worked out. Phil Hammond is the ex-chancellor of the United Kingdom, who was actually Remain, wasn't he?
He was definitely
Remain. What was his views on
So
that?
he was, as you quite rightly said, he was definitely Remain.
Yeah.
He certainly said we should not have come out. But he said last week, he goes, we've come out, we need to deal with it now, and we need to focus on the succession plans. So he was, as I said, certainly a Remainer, but he knows that we should just now come together as a nation, grasp it and move on, which I don't think we have, because we left the European Union, was it 2-3 years ago? Was it?
Yeah,
officially?
It's been a few years.
We haven't. I don't think we've ever moved on, even though these, not many people are talking about Brexit anymore.
Yeah.
But we haven't really moved on from it. Boris has moved on. We've had a couple of other PMs in between that, but it is what it is. So as a nation, I think we need to, come together and find a plan going forward. So I just think we need to be a bit more stronger.
I think, Akhil, you've put a really good point there. Whatever your views are around Brexit, as a country, you have to go by the majority. That's the whole point, right? Whether you agree or not. I was not a person who was for pro-Brexit because of my finance and economics background.
But we're still friends though, right?
Of course. But I respect people's different views.
Yes.
And once the majority make the thing, because we live in a democracy, whatever people's views are on that these days, but we should respect that and try to make it work, even if we don't agree with it. And I think this divisive culture, I'm not liking that. And people just calling each other, you can have different views, but we have to all agree somewhere to move on, because there's only one country, right? United Kingdom. There's not loads of factions of it. And I think that's the challenge. I want to also talk about the property world and how you feel technology has affected property strategies, or generally how strategies are changing. Do you feel property strategies are changing now because of technology?
Yeah, I think, okay, so what I'll probably add to it is not just technology that's adapting and making people's mindsets change. I think content that's going out online, stuff that you guys are putting out online, you're very well equipped in property tax. Structuring your property tax, getting real good quality advice around investing in your first buy-to-let, your first commercial acquisition. I think not just technology, I think the amount of education that's out there now in the masses for free is paramount. And we're seeing a lot of that, especially since the Chancellor came into play with the whole Section 24 of not offsetting tax. That has played a pivotal part in it. And I think the good thing is a lot of the content that's online, not all of it, some of it is a bit in the grey area, but in the whole, a lot of it that's online is certainly powerful. It gives clients or a first-time buyer or even a seasoned investor different angles to look at certain things. I think with permitted development, there's lots of opportunities out there, and I know Ranjan talks about it on his videos a lot. I think
we had a podcast with him which got a lot really deep into that. Going on your thing, I think you put really good, huge value there. I generally believe that you use technology, especially social media content and things like YouTube, LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms to get some insight. But everyone's situation is unique. So I would always recommend, before you action something, don't just action it because you heard it on social media. Go and get bespoke advice to your circumstances. But the thing it helps is at least you know what questions to ask, because a lot of people don't invest no time in knowledge. They turn up and then you're sort of having to be understanding what they're trying to get to before you can give them the advice, because everyone's journey is different and that changes the answer as well. That's where it's so important.
I agree. And if it's too good to be true, it's probably true as well.
We've seen that. My last major question around what's happening is, do you feel that we're in a recession or not?
Well, officially we are in recession now, aren't we? But my take on that is, I always say don't look at your household. Don't look at the global view of it. Look at your internal demographic, your own household. Look at your core expenses. When you go to the supermarket, has your cost of groceries actually physically gone up? Because I'm sure what you eat and drink is totally different to what I do or something like that. There's going to be some similarities. But I think you've got to be mindful of what your costs are of going up. Don't worry about the external factors that you can't really change. We know as a country we're now in a recession, technically. How much can we do to bring it back into recession? Is it in our hands? Probably not, to be honest, to a certain degree. There's lots of things that we can do.
You mean in the recovery?
In the recovery, correct, yes.
Absolutely.
So I think we are in a recession. Are we going to come out of recession? I think so. When will it happen? I don't know. But I think we just need to home it in a bit, think about ourselves, be a bit more selfish in our discipline, and finding ways, because there's plenty of ways to make money out there. You know,
there is.
plenty.
I wanted to touch on that from your perspective as a mortgage provider or mortgage broker working with many lenders. That must affect people's buying decisions and how they go around getting their mortgages. Because normally recessions, high inflation, interest rates, all this fun normally does affect it. In your experience, in the last, say, 12 months, have you noticed mortgages dropping or increasing? Because there was the COVID stage, if I'm allowed to say that, right, where mortgages went really high in demand, right? But have you seen that drop, as all the stats are saying?
Yeah, so stats don't lie. I always say stats don't lie. Look at the underlying data, and that always paints a true picture. So the short answer is mortgage applications have certainly dropped in the last 12 to 18 months. That's probably on the back of we've had 14 consecutive rate rises and we're now at 5.25%. So the days of really, really cheap money at 1% and 2% are certainly behind us, I think, for a long, long time. Mortgage approvals during the lockdown 2020 to 2022 was phenomenal. From a business perspective, our mortgage application spiked very, very generously. We've seen that drop off in 2023. But what I would say is always look at the pros. Interest rates are up. But mortgage interest rates are certainly coming down as we speak, which is good to see. There's talk that central banks, the US, the ECB, and the UK are going to drop interest rates from the summer. There's a good chance of it. Inflation's come down to 4%, 5% now, so it's less than halved, which is good to see. So I think confidence is rebuilding. I think there's more houses available online to buy. I'm currently selling 2 of my own properties, and I've had more viewers pop in the last 6 weeks than I had in the last 8-9 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks. So it's certainly on an upward trajectory. Confidence is there. Interest rates are coming down, but people coming off fixed rates, and we're having these conversations on a daily basis. They're like, "Oh my days, I was paying X, and now you expect me to pay Y," and I'm like, "I'm sorry." I am sorry, but we are where we are. And I think it's a case of where we are and providing that relationship, it's that consultancy bit, that some people now might need to sell certain properties because they're not cash flowing as good as they have in the last decade. And that's not a bad thing, because they've had amazing last 10, 20 years on certain properties. It's a business. There's always this and this. And you've got to be mindful of that. But it's all about, readdressing it, having those annual reviews with your mortgage advisor, with your accountancy business, and realigning where your plans are for the next 12 months, or even have them half yearly.
I think you've put that in a nutshell. Just to unpack, there's 2 aspects to this. One is if I'm buying it as my main house, how my disposable income, my employment criteria, and what's happening in the employment world, or if I'm running a business, how my main house is. But then from an investment, i.e. buy-to-let perspective, what you've just mentioned is so important, because they've got to see the numbers stacking up. If my costs are rising, which they have across the piece, gas, electric, and everything, depending on how you're doing it, if you're doing HMOs or buy-to-lets, right? If my cost of financing is my biggest cost is rising, and if I've fully leveraged, i.e., we talk about mortgages, if I took 75% or 70% commercial, residential being 75, there's a good chance it's not making money anymore. So the only answer is either I reduce my leverage when it comes to renew because the interest rate's higher, or if I can't still make the numbers because I need so much financing, either selling or running as a loss, which is, as you said, not a good business savvy decision. In some circumstances that can work as well, I guess, depending on capital appreciation, right? No, you're 100% right. And what I'd probably leave you lastly with is when you're looking to buy your first property or your next investment property, you're going to come to us with the facts and figures. If we say it's not mortgageable and there's not enough meat on the bone, then it's a bad deal. So you haven't lost any money. That's it.
And then secondly, if the lender's not interested in that deal because the numbers are too thin, then you definitely know it's not going to work. So any new acquisition is going to go through the washing machine a couple of times. The investor, the mortgage broker, and then the lender as well. So it's going to go through that cycle to make sure it does fit and it's got enough meat on the bones.
I think you summarised well, and the last one on that is coverage. Right. I want to just mention that because that used to be such a huge thing. So interest coverage. So normally what used to be is we used to be like 125% going up to I think it was about 125%, wasn't it? So that means that if I'm getting rent of, say, I'm going to use £1,250,
Yeah.
right, my mortgage interest couldn't be more than £1,000 if I'm using the 125%.
Yeah,
that's correct.
So basically,
right? So
for every £1,000 rent, you've got to have at least 1250 in rent coming in. So that gives you 125 exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the coverage still at 125%?
So the long and short of it is, depending on your tax band.
Yeah.
If you're buying in your personal name and you're a low rate taxpayer, 125%.
Yeah.
If you're buying in your personal name and you're a high rate taxpayer, then it's 145.
Wow.
But if you're buying in a company, then it's usually just a flat 125. So there's lots of benefit buying in a company.
Wow.
One is the offset of interest. Two is the amount of loan that you can borrow. And three, what was the third reason? Back to how much you can borrow.
Yeah.
So
whether it cash flows.
So yeah, but again, anybody that's interested in knowing more, get in touch with us.
Yeah.
There's no cost to the borrower having a conversation with us. It's at our expense. So have a conversation with us. Let's be open, transparent. Let's work to see what works for you now, because what worked in the last decade is certainly not going to work this decade going forward. So I think it's a case of looking at the numbers, working with your goals and aspirations, because you and I both know property is not just a short-term game.
No,
it's a medium to long-term play.
Yes.
And you've got to have a certain amount of equity.
Yeah.
But the good thing is there's lots of lenders for every client, every opportunity, every type of property and so on. But we just need to get to know the facts and figures, siphon it through, and then propose a finance package to our clients.
Love it. Akhil, huge value, and I hope all the listeners have heard so much in there. Akhil's told us his journey is entrepreneurial, quite inspirational, and then also how his property journey, being a property entrepreneur and providing financing for property entrepreneurs, huge thing. Akhil, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Zeke.
Thank you for being on Next Level
Likewise.
Finance podcast. We're going to put his details in comments below. You want to get involved in property, want to understand how to get money, leverage, get in contact with this man, or make sure you speak to a mortgage broker, because they can help you unlock the doors, which is huge in your property entrepreneurial journey. Thank you so much for watching the Next Level Finance podcast. Thank you so much. Hi everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. We're doing this to add value to your entrepreneur journey, which is have a quick catch up on this, is that just to remind you, we've got free business guides in the comments below. They got huge value in them for property investors, property developers, SaaS pensions, and if you've got growing trading business as well. After you consume those guides that have got exclusive Sky TV episodes in them, please do get in contact with us. The contact details are there, and we can help shape your entrepreneur journey and unlock financial freedom. Thank you so much.